Listen to me. The greatest transformations don't happen in a crowd. They don't happen when you're surrounded by noise, distractions, and people who don't see what you see. They happen in the quiet. They happen when it's just you, when the world fades out and you're left alone with your thoughts, your struggles, your dreams, and your purpose. Some of you are afraid to be alone. You think being alone means you're lost. You think being alone means something's wrong with you. But I'm telling you right now, being alone is where greatness is built. Being alone is the difference between those who talk about success and those who actually achieve it. Every champion, every leader, every history maker had a season where they had to walk alone. They had to separate themselves from the crowd, from the noise, from the distractions, and lock in. See, people don't understand what happens when you're alone. They think you're struggling, they think you're losing, but what they don't see is the fire that's building inside of you. What they don't see is the focus, the discipline, the hunger. Because when you're alone, you have no choice but to face yourself. You don't have the luxury of blaming anybody else. You don't have anyone to lean on, to complain to save you. It's just you and your reflection. And you have to decide, am I going to break or am I going to build? You ever wonder why the greatest minds, the greatest warriors, the greatest leaders, why they all had to go through a period of isolation? Because solitude is the forge of greatness. A forge, you know what a forge is? It's a place where metal is melted down, reshaped, and turned into something unbreakable. And that's exactly what happens when you embrace being alone. You step into the fire and you come out stronger. See, most people run from solitude. They run from quiet. They run from the hard work of looking inside themselves. But the ones who make it to the top, they run toward it. They know that in order to reach that next level, they have to separate themselves from the pack. They have to train when no one's watching. They have to plan when no one believes in them. They have to keep pushing when no one is cheering. Some of you right now, you're waiting for permission. You're waiting for somebody to tell you it's okay to be different. You're waiting for somebody to come and hold your hand and say, let's go together. But let me tell you something. If you keep waiting, you will never get there. Because the path to greatness is walked alone. The world is not going to hold your hand. The world is not going to stop and wait for you to be ready. The world is going to move with or without you. And the only question is, are you willing to move alone? You ever see a lion hunt? You ever watch how the strongest ones move? They don't move in packs. They don't make noise. They don't follow the crowd. They isolate themselves. They focus. They move with intention. And when the moment comes, they strike. That's what being alone does for you. It sharpens your instincts. It sharpens your mind. It makes you unstoppable. I know it's hard. I know it's uncomfortable. I know it feels like nobody understands you. But that's the price of being different. That's the price of being chosen. If you want to do what nobody else has done, you have to be willing to do what nobody else is willing to do. That means turning off the noise. That means shutting out the opinions. That means looking yourself in the mirror and saying, it's me versus me. Nobody's coming to save me. Nobody's coming to push me. Nobody's coming to believe in me before I believe in myself. You have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. You have to understand that being alone is not a punishment. It's a preparation. It's where you develop the discipline, the resilience, and the mindset that will separate you from everybody else. And when you finally step back into the world, when you finally show them what you've been working on, when they finally see what you've built in the dark, that's when they'll understand. That's when they'll respect you. That's when they'll say, where did this come from? How did they do that? And you smile because you know you did it in the silence. You did it when nobody was watching. You did it when you were alone. So if you're in that season right now, if you feel like it's just you, if you feel like nobody understands what you're going through, I need you to hear me. Stay there. Stay in that space. Use that time, because being alone is not weakness. Being alone is power. Listen to me. If you can't handle being alone, you can't handle being great. Period. Because the truth is, life is going to test you. Life is going to push you to the edge, break you down, strip away everything you thought you needed until it's just you. No backup, no support, no safety net. And in that moment, you're either going to fold or you're going to rise. Everybody wants to be strong, until it's time to do what strong people do. Everybody wants to talk about success, about being unstoppable, about being built different, until life throws them into the fire, until they find themselves standing alone with no one to lean on. That's the moment that separates the weak from the strong. That's the moment where you find out who you really are, because when you're alone, there are no distractions, no excuses, no outside voices telling you what to do. It's just you and your thoughts, you and your weaknesses, you and your demons. And the question is, what are you going to do about it? See, mental strength isn't built in comfort. It's built in isolation. It's built when you wake up every morning and there's nobody there to tell you to keep going, but you do it anyway. It's built when you face failure, disappointment, and setbacks. And instead of running to somebody for validation, you stand tall and say, I got this. It is. Built when life knocks you down, and instead of crying about who left you, who doubted you, who betrayed you, you get back up, look yourself in the mirror and say, I'm built for this. You ever notice how people who can't be alone always need something to distract them? They always need noise. They always need people around them. They always need to be entertained, to be validated, to be reassured. You know why? Because deep down, they're afraid. Afraid of their own thoughts. Afraid of what they might discover if they sit in silence for too long. Afraid that without someone holding their hand, they might fall apart. But the ones who master solitude, the ones who can stand on their own no matter what, those are the ones who become unshakable. Look, I need you to understand something. Life is not about how strong you look when everything is going your way. Life is about how strong you stay when everything falls apart. And if you've never learned how to be alone, if you've never learned how to rely on yourself, then when that storm comes, it's going to break you. That's why you have to train yourself now. That's why you have to embrace those moments when it's just you. Because every time you push through, every time you prove to yourself that you don't need approval, that you don't need permission, that you don't need anybody to hold your hand, you get stronger. Some of you, the only reason you're stuck is because you're waiting for somebody to come save you. You're waiting for somebody to give you permission to be great. You're waiting for somebody to clap for you, to notice you, to validate you before you take that next step. But let me tell you something. Nobody is coming. Nobody's going to do it for you. And the moment you accept that, the moment you stop looking around and start looking within, that's the moment you become dangerous. That's the moment you become unstoppable. You ever see those people who walk into a room and they don't need to say a word, but you can feel their presence? That's not confidence from what the world gave them. That's confidence from what they built in the dark. That's a person who has faced themselves, conquered their own mind, fought their own battles, and came out on the other side knowing exactly who they are. And when you know who you are, when you built that strength from within, there is nothing that life can throw at you that you can't handle. You need to stop running from yourself. Stop distracting yourself. Stop waiting for somebody to come and make you feel whole, because the truth is, if you can't be strong alone, you're never really strong. If you can't believe in yourself when nobody else does, then you don't really believe. And if you can't keep pushing forward when there's no applause, no recognition, no support, then you don't want it bad enough. So here's the challenge. The next time you find yourself alone, the next time you feel like nobody's in your corner, instead of feeling sorry for yourself, use it. Use that time to build. Use that time to grow. Use that time to develop the kind of strength that nobody can take away from you. Because when you master that, when you become so solid in who you are that you don't need anyone to remind you of your power, that's when you step into your true potential. That's when the world has no choice but to respect you. Because real strength isn't found in a crowd. It's built when you're standing alone, looking yourself in the mirror and knowing, I don't need anybody to make me great. I was built for this. Listen to me. Real confidence isn't built when you're surrounded by people. Real confidence isn't about how many followers you have, how many people clap for you, how many friends tell you that you're doing a good job. Real confidence is built when you're by yourself, when there's no one cheering, when there's no validation, just you, your grind, and your vision. Some of you have spent your whole life depending on other people to tell you who you are. You need someone to tell you that you're talented. You need someone to tell you that you're valuable. You need someone to approve of your dreams before you chase them. But let me tell you something. If your confidence comes from other people, then it's not real confidence. If your confidence disappears when people stop clapping, then you never had confidence to begin with. The strongest people in the world, the ones who can walk into any room, any situation, and still know exactly who they are, those are the ones who built their confidence in the dark. Those are the ones who learned to believe in themselves before the world believed in them. Because let me tell you right now, there will come a time when you have to stand alone. There will come a time when nobody understands your vision, when nobody sees the dream the way you see it, when people start doubting you, criticizing you, walking away from you. And in that moment, if you don't have the confidence to stand on your own, you will break. See, people think confidence is loud. They think it's about showing off, proving something, making sure everybody knows how good you are. But real confidence is quiet. Real confidence is walking into a room and not needing to be the loudest person, not needing to prove anything, not needing to convince anyone, because you already know who you are. Real confidence is knowing that even if nobody believes in you, even if nobody claps for you, even if nobody sees what you see, you still got it. But you don't get that by waiting for approval. You don't get that by surrounding yourself with people who constantly validate you. You get that by putting in the work when no one is watching. You get that by spending time alone, developing yourself, sharpening your mind, mastering your craft, and building a foundation so solid that no rejection, no failure, no doubt can shake you. Some of you are too dependent on the crowd. You're too used to having people around you telling you what to do, making you feel good. And the moment you're alone, you start questioning yourself. The moment nobody's there to tell you you're doing great, you start doubting your abilities. But that's because you've been feeding off other people's energy instead of generating your own. That's because you've been relying on the world to tell you who you are instead of looking in the mirror and deciding for yourself. You ever see a tree? The strongest trees, the ones that withstand the storms, the ones that don't break when the winds come, those are the trees with deep roots. And your confidence is the same. If your confidence is shallow, if it's built on people's opinions, if it's built on how many likes you get, if it's built on how many people approve of you, then the moment the storm comes, you're going to fall. But if your confidence is built deep, if it's rooted in who you are and what you've built and what you know you can do, then no storm, no failure, no rejection can shake you. You need to stop seeking validation. You need to stop waiting for permission. And you need to stop depending on other people to tell you it's okay to believe in yourself. Because let me tell you something. If you don't believe in you, nobody else will. If you don't trust your own power, your own mind, your own vision, then how can you expect the world to? Some of you are sitting on dreams, sitting on talent, sitting on ideas that could change your life, but you're too afraid to step out on your own. You're too afraid to take that leap without a safety net. But let me tell you right now, confidence is built in the leap. Confidence is built when you step out before you feel ready. Confidence is built when you trust yourself enough to take action, even when you're scared, even when you're alone, even when nobody else understands. You want to be great? You want to be unstoppable? Then you have to be willing to stand on your own. You have to be willing to trust yourself when nobody else does. You have to be willing to believe in your vision when nobody else sees it. Because real confidence isn't about needing people. It's about not needing them. It's about knowing that whether they support you or not, whether they clap for you or not, whether they stay or walk away, you're still going to make it. And when you build that kind of confidence, when you become so solid in who you are that nothing can shake you, that's when you become dangerous. That's when you step into your full power. That's when the world has no choice but to respect you, because confidence isn't given. It's built. It's earned. And the only way to get it is to stand alone and prove to yourself that you don't need anybody to make you great. Listen to me. The reason some of you are stuck, the reason some of you keep going in circles, the reason you can't seem to break through to that next level, it's not because you're not capable. It's not because you don't have talent. It's not because you don't want it bad enough. It's because you're surrounded by too much noise, too many opinions, too many distractions, too many people telling you what you should do, how you should do it, what's possible, what's impossible. And because of that, you can't hear your own voice. You ever wonder why the greatest minds, the greatest visionaries, the greatest leaders always had to separate themselves before they rose to greatness? Why they had to step away from the crowd, from the noise, from the expectations? Because clarity doesn't come when you're in the middle of chaos. It doesn't come when you're constantly checking what everybody else is doing. It doesn't come when you're filling every quiet moment with meaningless distractions. Clarity comes in solitude. Clarity comes when you remove the noise, sit with yourself and listen, not to what the world is saying, but to what your own spirit is telling you. See, some of you are afraid to be alone because you don't want to face yourself. You don't want to sit in silence because you know that if you do, all the things you've been ignoring, all the things you've been running from, all the things you've been covering up with distractions, they're going to show up. And you don't want that. You don't want to confront your fears. You don't want to face your insecurity. You don't want to acknowledge that maybe, just maybe, you've been playing small. You've been making excuses. You've been listening to too many voices that aren't even yours. But let me tell you something. If you don't create space for clarity, you will spend your whole life confused. You will spend your whole life chasing things that don't align with who you really are. You will spend your whole life listening to people who don't even understand your vision. And that's why some of you feel lost. That's why some of you feel stuck, because you've been looking outside for direction when the answers have been inside you this whole time. You ever wonder why people who take time alone, who step away, who remove themselves from the noise, always come back sharper, always come back stronger, always come back with a level of certainty that they didn't have before? Because when you strip away the distraction, when you stop letting the world pull you in 100 different directions, when you take a moment to actually listen to yourself, you gain clarity. You start to see the things that actually matter. You start to recognize what's been holding you back. You start to realize what you've been tolerating that you should have walked away from a long time ago. And let me tell you, once you have clarity, everything changes. Once you truly know what you want, what you're here to do, what actually moves you, then making decisions becomes easy. You stop second guessing yourself. You stop chasing approval. You stop allowing distractions to pull you away from your purpose. Because once you've seen the vision clearly, you can't unsee it. Once you know the truth about who you are and what you're meant to do, nothing can shake you. Some of you have dreams inside of you, visions inside of you, ideas inside of you that are trying to speak, but you can't hear them because it's too much noise. You spend too much time scrolling, too much time comparing, too much time listening to people who don't even believe in themselves, let alone in you. And that's why you doubt yourself. That's why you don't move with confidence. Because every time you get close to hearing your own voice, you drown it out with the voices of others. You ever notice how the greatest breakthroughs happen in silence, how the biggest revelations come when you're by yourself, thinking, reflecting, digging deep? That's not a coincidence. That's because when you finally get alone, when you finally step away from the world, when you finally cut off the distractions, that's when you can see. That's when you can hear. That's when you can start moving with conviction. Some of you, you've been making moves, but they're not your moves. You've been chasing goals, but they're not your goals. You've been running so hard, but you don't even know where you're going. And that's why you feel tired. That's why you feel frustrated. That's why you feel like you're putting in all this effort, but still not seeing results, because you're not moving with clarity. And the only way to get that clarity is to disconnect. Step away, get alone, spend time with yourself. Not once, not just when life gets hard, but regularly. Make it a habit. Make it part of your process. Because the people who win, the people who move with purpose, the people who create real impact, they are the ones who take time to think. They are the ones who take time to reflect. They are the ones who take time to make sure that every move they make is aligned with their vision. So if you've been feeling stuck, if you've been feeling lost, if you've been feeling like you don't know what to do next, let me tell you right now, it's not because you don't have the answers. It's because you haven't given yourself the space to hear them. And once you do that, once you stop letting the world drown out your own voice, once you start listening to what's inside of you instead of what's outside of you, that's when everything shifts. That's when things start to make sense. That's when you stop chasing and start creating. Because when you gain clarity, you gain power. And when you gain power, nothing can stop you. Nothing. You need to understand something. Growth doesn't happen in comfort. Strength isn't built when everything is easy. Power doesn't come from doing what's familiar, what's safe, what's convenient. If you really want to grow, if you really want to elevate, if you really want to step into the best version of yourself, then you have to learn how to embrace discomfort. You have to learn how to sit in solitude, how to push through the silence, how to face yourself without distractions, without validation, without anyone holding your hand. See, most people avoid being alone because it's uncomfortable. It forces them to deal with things they don't want to deal with. It forces them to confront their weaknesses, their fears, their insecurities. And instead of facing those things head on, instead of using that time to grow, to heal, to evolve, they run. They fill their lives with noise. They surround themselves with people who keep them distracted. They stay busy, not productive, busy. Because as long as they stay busy, as long as they keep moving, they don't have to stop and think. But the problem is, avoiding discomfort doesn't make it go away. Ignoring your weaknesses doesn't make you stronger. Running from yourself doesn't help you grow. The only way to level up, the only way to truly transform is to do the work. And doing the work means spending time alone. Doing the work means sitting with your thoughts. Doing the work means pushing through the moments where you feel like quitting, where you feel like giving up, where you feel like going back to what's easy, but you don't. You ever notice how the greatest transformations don't happen when things are good? They happen when people are tested. They happen when people are forced to adapt, forced to struggle, forced to fight through the darkness. That's where growth happens. That's where strength is built. And some of you, the reason you're not growing, the reason you're stuck in the same place, the reason you're not breaking through is because you keep avoiding that struggle. You keep choosing comfort over progress. You keep running back to the same people, the same habits, the same mindset that's been holding you back. And every time you do that, you rob yourself of the opportunity to become who you were meant to be. Listen to me. When you sit in solitude, when you take time to reflect, when you force yourself to be still, to be uncomfortable, to wrestle with your own thoughts, that's when the real work happens. That's when you start to see yourself clearly. That's when you start to recognize the patterns that have been keeping you stuck. That's when you start to break the cycle. Because when you're always around people, when you're always looking for something to distract you, you don't have time to analyze your life. You don't have time to check yourself, to ask yourself, am I really doing what I need to be doing? Am I really growing? Am I really improving? But when you're alone, when there's nothing but you and your thoughts, that's when the truth comes out. That's when you see things for what they really are. And the truth might be uncomfortable. It might force you to admit that you've been playing small. It might force you to acknowledge that you've been making excuses. It might force you to accept that you've been settling when you were meant for more. But that discomfort, that pain is necessary, because pain is what produces growth. Pain is what sharpens you, what strengthens you, what pushes you past your limit. You ever go to the gym and lift weights? You ever push yourself until your muscles burn, until you feel like you can't do one more rep? That pain, that burn, that's growth. That's how you get stronger. And your mind, your character, your spirit, it works the same way. If you never push yourself, if you never challenge yourself, if you never put yourself in situations that force you to grow, then you will stay weak. And if you stay weak, then you will never reach your full potential. Some of you, you keep asking for growth, you keep asking for success, you keep asking for change, but the moment it gets hard, the moment it gets uncomfortable, you back down. You go right back to what's easy. You go right back to what's safe. But let me tell you something. You cannot grow and stay comfortable at the same time. You cannot elevate and stay the same. You cannot become your best self without going through some fire. And being alone, that's part of the fire. That's part of the process. Because when you're alone, you're forced to deal with things you'd rather avoid. You're forced to confront the fears, the doubts, the insecurities that have been running your life. And instead of letting them control you, instead of letting them dictate your decisions, you face them, you push through them, and you come out strong. You think greatness comes from staying comfortable? You think success comes from avoiding struggle? No. The people who make it, the people who rise, the people who dominate, they embrace the discomfort. They lean into the struggle. They use the solitude as a time to sharpen themselves, to strengthen their mindset, to develop the resilience they need to handle whatever life throws at them. So stop running. Stop looking for distractions. Stop avoiding the work. Sit with yourself. Push through the discomfort. Train your mind. Because the moment you learn how to be alone, the moment you learn how to sit in silence, how to reflect, how to face your own weaknesses without running, that's the moment you step into your true power. Because growth isn't given, it's earned. And the only way to earn it is to embrace the struggle and do the work. Let me tell you something. If you don't know how to be alone, if you don't know how to walk this path by yourself, if you don't know how to hold yourself accountable when nobody is watching, then you are always going to be dependent on somebody else to push you. You're always going to need somebody to validate you, to remind you, to motivate you, and that's a problem. Because if you need somebody to wake you up, if you need somebody to tell you to grind, if you need somebody to believe in you before you believe in yourself, then what happens when they're gone? What happens when you're standing in that moment where it's just you and your decisions, when it's just you and your discipline, when it's just you and the work that needs to be done? That's why some of you struggle. That's why some of you keep stopping and starting, why some of you can't stay consistent, why you keep falling back into the same patterns, because you're waiting on somebody else. You're waiting for support. You're waiting for encouragement. You're waiting for the perfect conditions. But life doesn't wait. Success doesn't wait. If you can't move forward alone, if you can't stay disciplined when nobody's holding your hand, then you are never going to reach your full potential. See, real power comes when you learn how to be your own source of motivation. When you learn how to show up for yourself, and you don't need applause, when you don't need validation, when you don't need somebody checking in on you every 5 minutes to make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do, because you already know what needs to be done and you do it. Some of you keep saying you want to be great. You keep saying you want to be successful. You keep saying you want to change your life. But the moment you feel alone, the moment you don't have people hyping you up, the moment you don't have a crowd cheering you on, you slow down. You start questioning yourself. You start looking around for somebody to give you permission to keep going. But let me ask you something. Who are you doing this for? Who are you grinding for? Who are you trying to prove something to? Because if you need an audience, if you need constant reassurance, then you're not doing this for the right reasons. The ones who really make it, the ones who really change their lives, they don't do it for recognition. They don't do it for likes. They don't do it for approval. They do it because they made a decision that they were going to become who they were meant to be no matter what. Whether people supported them or not. Whether people believed in them or not. Whether they had a team behind them or had to walk the road alone. Because sometimes that's exactly what's going to happen. Sometimes you're going to look around and nobody's going to be there. Nobody's going to understand your vision. Nobody's going to see what you see. And if you're not strong enough, if you don't know how to stand on your own, if you don't know how to push yourself, even when nobody's watching, then you're going to fall. You're going to talk yourself out of it. You're going to settle for less than what you were created for. But when you learn how to stand alone, when you learn how to depend on you, when you learn how to wake up every day and put in the work, not because somebody is telling you to, not because somebody's watching, but because you made a promise to yourself, that's when you become dangerous. That's when you become unstoppable. Because now you don't need permission. Now you don't need validation. Now you don't need somebody holding your hand every step of the way. Some of you have been waiting for somebody to come save you. You've been waiting for somebody to believe in you. You've been waiting for somebody to give you the push you need. But let me tell you something. Nobody is coming to save you. Nobody is going to fight for your dream the way you need to fight for it. Nobody is going to care about your future the way you should care about it. And the moment you accept that, the moment you stop waiting for external motivation, the moment you take full responsibility for your own journey, everything changes. Because now you stop making excuses. Now you stop looking for reasons to quit. Now you stop depending on somebody else to tell you what you already know. You need to go harder. You need to lock in. You need to stop playing with your potential. And I get it. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it feels like nobody understands what you're trying to do. Sometimes it feels like you're climbing this mountain alone. Like you're the only one who sees the vision. Like you're the only one who's willing to put in the work. But guess what? That's part of the process. That's what separates the ones who say they want it from the ones who actually get it. Because if you can't handle being alone, if you can't handle walking through that fire without reassurance, then you're not ready for the next level. So stop waiting. Stop looking for validation. Stop depending on external motivation to get you moving. Make a decision. Decide that no matter who's watching, no matter who supports you, no matter who believes in you or doubts you, you are going to show up every single day and put in the work. Because at the end of the day, it's not about them. It's about you. It's about the promise you made to yourself. It's about the commitment to becoming everything you were created to be. And the moment you realize that, the moment you stop needing permission, the moment you take full ownership of your journey, that's the moment you step into your true power. Most people don't understand this, but let me break it down for you. Being alone is not a weakness. Being alone is not a punishment. Being alone is not something you should be afraid of. Because the truth is, when you are alone, that's when you find out what you're really made of. That's when you strip away all the noise, all the opinions, all the distractions, and you get to the core of who you really are. See, most people never take the time to be alone. They're always surrounded by something. People, social media, conversations that don't matter, environments that keep them distracted. And they don't even realize that all that noise is keeping them from hearing the most important voice they'll ever have, their own. The voice that tells them what they really want. The voice that reminds them of their purpose. The voice that says, this is who you are, this is what you were meant to do. But they can't hear because they won't sit still long enough to listen. And that's why so many people are lost. That's why so many people have no direction. That's why so many people wake up every day feeling like something is missing because they never take the time to sit with themselves. They never take the time to get quiet, to reflect, to ask the hard questions. What do I really want? What is my purpose? What kind of person am I becoming? They're too busy chasing things that don't even align with who they are. They're too busy listening to the world instead of listening to themselves. But let me tell you something. When you finally cut through all the noise, when you finally step away from all the distractions, when you finally stop running from yourself, that's when clarity comes. That's when you start to see. That's when things start making sense. And some of you, you've been confused for too long. You've been listening to everybody else's opinion on who you should be, what you should do, how you should live. And because of that, you've been out of alignment. And the only way to fix that, the only way to get back to who you really are is to sit with yourself, to embrace the silence, to embrace the discomfort, to take the time to figure out what's real and what's just noise. Because once you do that, once you start hearing your own voice again, Once you start moving from your truth instead of somebody else's expectations, everything changes. Some of you are scared to be alone because you don't know who you are without other people. You've spent so much time being what everybody else needed you to be, so much time trying to fit in, so much time chasing approval that you don't even know who you are when it's just you. But that's exactly why you need to be alone. That's exactly why you need to take a step back, because you can't build a real life. You can't build real success. You can't build real happiness if you don't even know who's doing the building. And I get it. Solitude can be uncomfortable. When you're alone, all the things you've been avoiding start to show up. The doubts, the fears, the insecurities, and a lot of people don't want to deal with that, so they run back to the noise. They run back to the distraction. They fill their time with people, with entertainment, with things that keep them busy but not better. But let me tell you something. Growth doesn't happen in distractions. Growth doesn't happen when you're running. Growth happens when you stop and face yourself. Growth happens when you get real about what's working in your life and what's not. Growth happens when you ask yourself, am I living in my purpose? Or am I just existing? And that's why the most powerful people, the most successful people, the most unstoppable people, they all have one thing in common. They are not afraid to be alone. They are not afraid to take time to step back, to reflect, to recharge, to listen to themselves. Because they know that without that clarity, without that self-awareness, without that deep understanding of who they are and what they're here to do, they will always be at the mercy of the world. They will always be reacting instead of creating. They will always be followers instead of leaders. And you were not put here to be a follower. You were not put here to spend your life chasing things that don't matter. You were not put here to live according to everybody else's expectations. You were put here to do something great. You were put here to be something great. But you'll never step into that greatness if you don't take the time to find out who you really are. So stop running. Stop avoiding the silence. Stop filling your life with distractions just so you don't have to sit with yourself. Get quiet. Take a step back. Listen to you. Because when you do that, when you finally start moving from a place of clarity instead of confusion, when you finally start making decisions based on your truth instead of somebody else's opinions, that's when you become unstoppable. Because when you truly know who you are, nobody can shake you. Nobody can break you. Nobody can tell you who you're supposed to be because you already know. And that is power. Let me make something real clear. If you don't learn how to be alone, if you don't embrace solitude, you will always be dependent on someone else to keep you moving. And let me tell you what happens when you rely on other people for your strength, your validation, your energy. You give away your power. You put your future, your dreams, your destiny in the hands of people who might not even understand what you're capable of. See, a lot of people struggle with this because they think being alone means being lonely. They think solitude is something negative, something to avoid. But that's because they've been conditioned to believe that they need constant noise, constant company, constant reassurance. They're afraid of silence. They're afraid of their own thoughts. They're afraid of looking in the mirror and facing who they really are. But let me tell you something. When you embrace being alone, when you stop needing external validation, when you stop depending on somebody else to push you, that's when you unlock your real power. That's when you start making decisions that align with your purpose, not somebody else's expectations. That's when you stop being swayed by opinions, by trends, by what everybody else is doing. Because now you move from a place of conviction. Now you stand firm in who you are. But see, some of you are scared to walk alone because you don't trust yourself yet. You don't trust your own voice, your own instinct. You second guess yourself. And that's why you keep running back to other people, waiting for them to tell you what to do, waiting for them to co-sign your dreams, waiting for them to say, yeah, it's a good idea. But let me ask you, what happens when they don't? What happens when they laugh at you? What happens when they tell you crazy? What happens when they don't believe in you the way you expect them to? See, that's the moment where most people quit. That's the moment where most people start doubting themselves. That's the moment where they say, maybe they're right. Maybe I'm not built for this. Maybe I should settle. And that's exactly why you need to develop the strength to walk alone. Because if your dream can be crushed by somebody else's doubt, you were never really committed to it in the first place. You got to get to a place where your belief in yourself is stronger than their disbelief, where your passion is stronger than their rejection, where your vision is so clear that nothing they say, nothing they do, nothing they think can shake you. And the only way to build that kind of mindset, the only way to develop that kind of unshakable confidence is through solitude. Because when you spend time alone, when you get in the habit of listening to yourself, when you start trusting your own intuition, your own judgment, you stop needing permission. You stop looking for validation. You stop waiting for the world to agree with you before you take action. You become your own source of motivation, your own source of inspiration, your own source of power. And that's dangerous. That's what separates the people who talk about success from the people who achieve it. That's what separates the people who dream about a better life from the people who create one. Because the truth is, not everybody is going to support you. Not everybody is going to understand you. Not everybody is going to see what you see. And that's okay, because you don't need them to. You don't need their approval. You don't need their validation. You don't need their permission to go after what's yours. Some of you have been waiting for too long, waiting for the perfect time, waiting for the right circumstances, waiting for somebody to tell you, go for it. But let me tell you something. You're going to be waiting forever, because there is never going to be a perfect time. There is never going to be a moment where everything aligns just right. You have to stop waiting and start moving. You have to start trusting yourself. You have to start believing that you have everything you need right now to take that next step. But that means stepping away from the distractions. That means cutting off the noise. That means getting serious about your own growth. Because if you're always surrounded by people who don't think like you, who don't dream like you, who don't move like you, guess what? They're going to slow you down. They're going to make you doubt yourself. They're going to project their fears onto you, and before you know it, you're going to be just like them, settling, stuck, wishing you had started sooner. So you got to be willing to walk alone. You got to be willing to isolate yourself if that's what it takes to get to the next level. You got to be willing to be misunderstood, to be doubted, to be talked about, and still keep going. Because at the end of the day, the people who change the world, the people who make history, the people who rise above, they don't follow the crowd. They don't wait for permission. They don't live for approval. They move with purpose. They move with conviction. They move because they know that what they're building, what they're working on, what they're striving for is bigger than the opinions of people who don't even have the courage to chase their own dreams. So I need you to stop looking around for somebody to walk this road with you. I need you to stop waiting for somebody to tell you it's okay to start. I need you to stop needing a support system before you believe in yourself. The real ones, they don't wait. They don't ask for permission. They don't slow down because they feel alone. They rise up. They lock in. They execute. And that's exactly what you need to do.